Greetings and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on world building. Lately, I have watched a number of videos on YouTube from well-known D&D influences, GDD, DM's Lair, others, and a few new ones that I've recently found. And all their videos on world building, I kind of, as usual, I have a very different, I think, way of suggesting it. They seem to have this sort of idea of don't go too heavy into world building. You don't need all this, you don't need all that, you just need simples and you can build up to it. And I get where they're coming from, but I also think it's slightly wrong. I saw one, I forget the name of the channel now, this is going back a couple of weeks, but their thing was, right, all you need is don't do a world, don't do a continent, don't even do a region, do a tiny area. And you have a town and you name that town and you write up, what's the local tavern and the name of the innkeeper, who's the mayor, who's the local priest or druid or witch, who's, the shopkeeper, the blacksmith, and sort of leave it at that. And there's a trade road that goes off and you have some woods and a swamp maybe and some mountains, and off to one side somewhere here you've got a dungeon, and that'll do. That's your world building. And I'm like, that's not a world building, that's an adventure. That's your basic, I'm a new DM and I'm going to write an adventure. You have a space of operations, you have some wilderness to explore, and you have the dungeon. And from there you can build on. And that might seem like a good idea for world building. I generally don't think it is. I think you're setting yourself up to kind of drop yourself in it. And why do I say that? Well, I think for a lot of it, I think players aren't daft and they're not simples, and they will want to know something about where they are. What's the name of the continent? What's the name of the kingdom or realm that they're in? What are the mountains called? What significant events happened here? Why is there a dungeon here? Why is this? And you're sat there going, it's all right if you want to do that, but if you're going to do that, you may as well write at least the whole region that this takes place in. For me personally, and this is my advice, if you are going to be a dungeon master and build your own world as opposed to using one of the many published ones that are out there, and I'll be honest, the published ones can be really good, but I think there is nothing better than your own creation. And it doesn't have to just be you alone. You can say to the players, to the people you're going to game with, is there anything that you would like incorporated? So, for example, in the campaign setting I built over the last year and still working on, don't listen to people who say, you just need this. You will always be working on this. And a lot of it will never come up. A lot of it will be never relevant outside of that random campaign or adventure you run. But your world is never finished, just like the real world is never finished. Anyway, jumping in. So there is a player in my Sunday night campaign. I run two in my world, once every other Sunday night and one every Tuesday night without fail. And I said to this particular guy, you can join us for the Sunday night one for one campaign, so you can get an idea of how D&D works and all this. And knowing that he has an interest in sort of like Japanese culture and lore and things for foxes, I went and came up with the concept. It's only the last probably 6 months that I've actually made a map of the area by the continent off to the west, across the sea, for that sort of culture, that sort of background for the Asian influenced setting in my world, a continent I called Shizuoka. And knowing that this is the sort of thing he would want, I created a kitsune species. And he was, he got what he wanted. He was really pleased, and the character's still going strong. But the player was really pleased that there was something that they wanted, something they liked, and he gave me some background stuff. It doesn't quite work into the campaign I'm running, but I can work something from it into there, and we have this continent that we may be able to explore in another campaign sometime. Likewise, the other players are like, don't mind, it's your world. We'll learn of it as we play, and next campaign we can we can build a character that we now know will fit into the setting better. What I did, other than that, was the first thing. This is step one of world building: is what are your influences? What in the fantasy genre are your influences? What things predominantly in your mind? What sort of thing gives you that, I like that sort of thing? For me, I've always liked Lord of the Rings. I've always liked, especially the book's great, but I really like the Peter Jackson movies. And so that will always have a thing in my mind to go, there'll be elements of that, influences of that will seep in some way. What the biggest one for my campaign setting is actually the Arcane TV show, and from that, looking into the lore of the League of Legends esports game. Some of the appearance of that has made its way into my setting. Some of the concepts that game in its world uses. And one of the big things for me for this was actually the look of the show, the Netflix show Arcane, which is set predominantly in an area that is not steampunk, I would say, but magic and technology, which is really interesting because I can't stand the Eberron setting for that very reason. But this sort of really grabbed me. And the fact that every time you see anywhere, it's not human-centric, despite the fact that humans seem to be the predominant sort of species. You see people of all different species. There's a clockwork person sits on the city council. There's these bat people, these weird cat people, what they call yordles in League of Legends, which are your gnome equivalents, and things like this. And and sometimes you'll just see a brand new species you've never seen that before just walk past the characters on screen. It's like, this is a world where anything goes, and that's brought in. With that in mind, I've been able to expand the species that I allow in the setting. Pretty much almost anything goes. I think the only thing I haven't included out of the books I've got so far are things like Githyanki and Githzerai, because I think they're more suited, I think, to something out in the plains, future campaigns, and maybe then, once the game opens them up, I might add them in. Other things, Dragonlance interests me. It's more, that's the setting that got me into D&D. So I like the romanticized fantasy elements. So bits of that crop in. There are various things. You need to find out what influences you. And don't steal it, but work those sort of influences, those elements into your setting. Write them down, the things that particularly interest you. See what you can do. The next thing is, I say, you need a continent. You don't need to map the entire world. That comes later. To start with, you at least need a continent map. You need to know who all the kingdoms are, or where these kingdoms are. And you need to know what the terrain is. Even if you're only going to start off with a tiny corner over here, you need to know what the rest of that continent looks like. What I did, because I have the map drawing skills of a 3-year-old, I just went onto Google and I looked for topographical maps, no words, and see what came up. In the end, I did that for 2 of the continents. My world has 3 continents. Hyboria is the one which mainly set on Shizuoka, which is the Asian influenced origin culture, and Zandahal, which is our lost world jungle, dinosaurs, pirates, off to the southeast. And for Shizuoka and Zandahal, that's what I found. I found these cool blank maps just on a Google search, and I was able to just put little dots on, put the names of what I want on there, done. What I actually did for my main continent, Hyberia, was I did something which I wish I'd thought of years ago, actually. I ran Dragonlance a lot in my early days and in 3rd edition. And one of the things that always used to annoy me was I hated the continent of Ancelot because it wasn't laid out very well. It's done to set up, you've had this big cataclysm and this is the state of the world now, but the layout of the continent and where the nations were never really worked. So I took a blank topographical map, no words, no kingdoms or anything like that on it. I flipped it left to right and upside down. So now I've got this polar region to the top, and I have this bit that sweeps round and these islands, and the continent just looks better. And that's my Hyberia. And next thing to go was, right, what's next? So that's what I would do, is if you, like me, cannot draw maps for toffee, look for something like that. Find a blank topographical map and use that. It's easy done. If you do have some map drawing skills, or you're not bothered by the fact that it's going to be a pencil and colouring pencil map, then draw what you want, come up with something. But again, I would recommend looking at these maps that you can find on Google, these random fancy maps that other people have created, and take inspiration if nothing else. Now, let's say you are going to do this. I'm setting myself in this little corner of this part of the continent here. You still need to know what the kingdoms are. And don't draw borders, don't draw lines like we have now on geopolitical maps. Just pick an area and label it. Call it whatever comes to your mind. The Kingdom of Dunland, the Empire of whatever. Come up with these names that you want and just put them there. They are placeholders. Borders shift, especially in a world like Dungeons and Dragons. There's going to be conflicts, there's going to be issues, borders change, mountains become natural borders, things like that. But you need to know where and what exists, what realms. And then just jot down a paragraph about each one and what they are and what they represent. So again, using my setting as a basis, the first thing I did was this stretch across the bottom of the map, which is just called the Wilderlands, which is the untamed sort of like corner. There's a trade route that runs through it. There's a single city called Bard's Gate, taken from an old Necromancer Games source book, which is like the hub for all things adventurers. And that's sort of like the trade point and this road that runs through. And to one side, we have the free realm of Ravenclaw. That was when my brain stopped working. It's very Harry Potter reference, but not for any real reason. And this is the free realm where nobody wants to be told what to do, and they come here and they try and live good lives. And, there's a little bit of corruption in there, but generally it's a bit of a socialist society. A town exists, a village exists, and everyone's left alone to get on with what they're doing. Perfect for some sort of adventures, or even a base for adventurers. Off the coast of that, there's a 3 large island realm, which is the Hollowdale, which is the corner of the world which is very sort of like druidic, Celtic. It's the connection to the Fey realms is strongest in this part of the world. You go back around the other side, I've got the Kingdom of Kierland, which at the time when I put it down I had forgotten was part of Greyhawk, but that's my feudal, typical knights, castles and a high king type thing. Up from that I have Beatis, which is again going back to Arcane. This is my area where magic and technology meet. They are technologically advanced, they have the advanced firearms, they have, airships, cameras, horseless carriages, golem works, That's that bit. Up from that, I have Tartaria, which is my not necessarily an evil realm, but it's one of the strong take what they want, and that's politically, militarily, and everything else. It's a very dominant society, but it's not necessarily evil. They wage conflict because if they contest the borders, they can push the borders slightly further. Might makes right, but they're not going to go out and start massive wars. I have Darkmoor, which is the subterranean realm, which originally started out as kind of like the Duergar, orc sort of unpleasant realm, but has since, again, copying from Arcane, I have based it more similar to Zorn, the Undercity. It's kind of a dark version of Byatis, where technology, artifice, and alchemy run unchecked. And that society is run by a secretive shadow council of who knows what they are. And they are kind of like the evil nation. But it's still a nation. You can still go in there as long as you don't start going into the dark, deep regions and their deeper cities. You can visit the trade posts and what have you. Up from that, there is Njordvik, which is my Viking-y bit. And then round from that, I have the last nation on the main continent, which is Sylvanos, which is the Elven kingdom. That's all I did. That's what the sort of like the basic notes I made for these realms. I did a basic timeline. I still haven't even expanded on that. I don't really see the need to expand too heavily on a timeline. There's plenty of years when nothing happens, same as in the real world. There are conflicts, there are wars, there are issues. But you only need to cover the major events. And then you just need some sort of notes to say how these different nations interact with one another. And that only needs to be, again, not even a paragraph. Who's the ruler? Who's the High King and Queen? Who's the Emperor? I don't believe in giving nations alignments. Alignments are for living things or animate things. A kingdom can be lawful, it can be chaotic, but it's generally not good, evil, or neutral. So just have an idea how your nation works. And to be honest, that's all you need. And you can run with that perfectly well. But you're going to want to expand it. And you can do that while you're playing a campaign. Because you can do this little town and these woods and the swamp and the mountains and the dungeon. And if someone asks a question, what kingdom are we in? Well, you would go, we are in the Kingdom of Dunland, near the western coast of the Azure Sea. And the reason the town is here is because of the mines in the mountain, which have now played out. It's now gone from being a mining support settlement to maybe a logging camp, trading with the city of Hightower. And people go, oh, okay, did anything major happen in the area? And you can go, well, once the dwarf mines played out, there wasn't much left. Don't really get monsters in this part of the world. But recent explorations of the woods have uncovered this ancient crypt and the dungeon beneath it. But you've got that. And the players feel a little bit more into the world. Gods are a different thing. Your deities. You don't have to use this. I certainly prefer worlds with pantheons. But you could say to a player who wants to play a cleric, who or what does your character serve? And they could turn around and go, well, I want to be a cleric of Thor. Okay, so the Norse gods are potentially part of this world, and you can incorporate that. Maybe they go that they serve the concept of justice and order. You go, okay, so you're following a aspect that has given you power. Great. And from that, if you haven't got an idea, you can just play with that. You could, or if you want specific gods, you can come up with a basic list. And that's what I would do. Just get a list of probably, it could be anything from 9 to cover like the various alignments. It could be 20, but just name them, what their aspects are, and an alignment. And that's sorted. That's your basic. That's all you need to start your campaign setting. Have an idea of what everything is, and then build it as you go. As you become more experienced, as you become more comfortable with it, you can start to go, right, well, we are primarily playing in Dunland, so I will expand upon that. And you can, I mean, in my campaign setting document, I think I have about 2 pages, A4 pages, including a couple of pieces of art, that show, who the rulers are, what the politics is like, what the military is like, what are the cities. Because I don't label cities on my maps, because quite frankly, I want them to be wherever I need them to be and just be consistent after that. What the military is like, geographic features, and places of interest. Once I've done that, I can do the neighbouring realms. And then once that's done, I can expand to the other ones. And over time, you can slowly build your world in detail. But my concern, where a lot of these YouTube influencers go, well, you only need to do this. So that's great in a way, but you need more than that. You need to be able to say what your world is like. Players will never accept the lore dump, which is always a shame. But they're going to ask questions. And if you don't have that, the immersion for them is off. And also, I think, for yourself as well. That's my thoughts. Take it, leave it, run with it, mix and match it with somebody else's concepts. But that's what I say is the way, even for a new DM or a new world builder to start. Build around that concept and expand upon it later on. Let me know what you think down below. If you've got some good channels that do cool videos on things like topics of world building and the like, drop in the link below and I'll check them out. Always up for looking for some new content. And I might even do, if you guys are interested, I might do a run through of what my setting is like. Maybe that as a separate sort of playlist for itself. Anyway, thank you for watching. Throw your comments downstairs in the little commenty bit. Give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see what conversation we get up to. And I'll see you in the next video soon. Take care, guys. Good gaming.